Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. We are here today to talk to you and have a webinar on teaching copyright. We're going to be sharing our free K-12 resources for teaching copyright and fair use, together with how to use these materials with your students this school year or the following school years. This is a re-recording. We apologize for the technical difficulties we had during the live presentation. However, the information you will receive today is the same. I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Jen Roth. I am an elementary librarian in the state of Pennsylvania, and I am the Copyright and Creativity Ambassador for Pennsylvania. I educate students K through 6, and there is my contact information if you would like to keep in touch or see all the things that I am doing in my library. I am also here today with two other ambassadors, Julie and Brittany, and I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you today, too. My name is Julie Jameson. I am a high school librarian outside of the St. Louis, Missouri area. I also serve as the K-12 library curriculum coordinator and the ambassador for copyright and creativity for ethical digital citizens. So welcome, and I'm glad you are watching today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Fleming. I am a K-4 elementary librarian in Arkansas. I'm also the Arkansas Ambassador for Copyright and Creativity. And I also am an adjunct professor for the University of Central Arkansas's Library Graduate Program. And I'm excited to be here with you today.
First, we just want to start off with saying that we are not lawyers and nothing provided today is legal advice. It's important to know that the materials were created by educators, just as ourselves, like yourself as well, and lawyers on both ends of the copyright spectrum who signed off to produce a non-biased approach to copyright and fair use. All of our curriculum is free, and yes, you heard that correctly. It is all licensed through Creative Commons, so you may use all portion or part of the content. We just ask for attribution. We have K-12 curriculum, which we're going to share in depth a little later. These resources include slides, videos, PDFs for lessons, online professional development courses. The materials were originally developed by iKeepSafe, a nonprofit that developed digital citizenship resources. When they changed their business model a few years ago, we knew these resources were too good to lose. So we found a new home with another nonprofit called the Internet Education Foundation. Currently, we have a grant that allows hands-on support for districts, including trainings and webinars, just like the one today. That's the reason we ask you to register on our website, which we'll talk about in a little bit, so our grantors can see how many districts are using our resources. Again, we'll talk more about the registration process in a little bit. So the real question comes today of why should we be teaching copyright? It's a basic life skill, a key element of digital literacy. Everyone interacts with and creates media. We're all publishers now, so we're digital consumers and digital producers. Right now, all of you have your cell phone right next to you. We are always consuming information. Yet the base knowledge of copyright is very low. Copyright used to be an option or item for lawyers and those big companies. However, we're all publishers and creators. So our approach to understand what the role of copyright is we emphasize our own roles as creators. The idea is to get them thinking about the works that they create or they might help somebody else create and look at copyright protection from that perspective. And now I'm going to pass it on to Julie, who's going to start with the basics of copyright today.
All right, so I'm going to start way back with the Constitution. This is the beginning of really thinking about and imagining copyright protections in the United States. So you can see that this is a direct quote from the Constitution. And it says, the Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writings and discoveries. So the US Constitution gives Congress the power to pass copyright laws. And because of this, artists and creators have some control over their work for a limited time. So it's good to know that we can trace it all the way back to the origin, the beginning of our country. What does copyright cover? It covers any original creative work once it's written down, recorded, or digitally saved. So yes, this includes a song, it includes a book, an article, video game, movie, software. A lot of times what we do at the beginning, like when we are in person, giving professional development, or even like at a presentation, or even with my high school students, for example, we have them start by doodling on a sticky note. And it's always an aha moment because we reveal to them later that yes, their little doodle on a sticky note is actually covered by copyright. Why? Because it's an original work and it's now in that fixed form. So there are 6 rights of copyright. However, 3 of these rights deal with the ways that work is shared with the public, either through display, performance, or digital performance. These different rights are all variations on the right of public performance. So to simplify it, we condensed that down, simplified the list down to 4. So under these simplified rights, the creator decides who can make copies, make derivatives like turning a book into a movie, distribute copies, and who can display or perform the work in public. So as a creator, you have a lot of power, and that's a great thing to share with our educators and our students. Okay, so we are going to play a first couple of minutes of this video. This video is from one of our middle school lessons that explains copyrights to students. So I'm wondering if I remember to enable the sound. So I'm going to check that real quick. Okay, hopefully this will work. Here we go.
Technology is awesome, isn't it? Not that technology. I'm talking about the revolutionary technology invented hundreds of years ago, called the printing press.
Dude, that looks old.
Oh, it's old. 600 years old.
Before Gutenberg's printing press, if you wanted a book, someone had to copy it by hand. Only the richest people in the world could afford to buy books. Most people didn't have access to creative work at all. But the printing press changed all that. For the first time, mass production of books became possible, and big ideas could spread fast. An author could finally reach a mass audience, but also, for the first time, an author's life's work could be copied and sold by anyone with a printing press. Does that seem fair?
No way.
So, in 1710, the British government passed the Statute of Anne.
No unauthorized copying of a book for 14 years, with the option to renew for another 14.
By the way, unauthorized means without permission. So authors had time to earn some money from their work before it fell into the public domain. The idea was to encourage them to keep writing, which means even more creativity. Nice, huh?
Nice.
Fast forward 60 years. When it came time to write the Constitution, guess what? Our founding fathers included copyright.
To promote the progress of science and useful arts, by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries.
What?
The Constitution gives Congress the power to pass copyright laws, and as a result, authors have the right to get paid for their books and to decide who gets to make copies.
That makes sense. If you put in all the time to write a really good book that people want to read, you should be able to get paid for it.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, but hopefully that gives you a taste of what some of our content is like. As you can see, it's visually engaging. Copyright, all concepts are framed in a very positive way, which we really like. So these videos are included in the lesson plans along with a corresponding Google slide deck. So you will have a complete lesson so that you know the content is presented accurately, which I really love. I say this because really when I was a librarian several years ago, when we started to get more involved with creating digitally on all the different media platforms that we use as teachers, I was nervous about teaching copyright because I didn't know so much about it. But I think that these lessons really help you. Everything has a script, which we will show you all that in just a little bit. Okay, so there are some limitations to copyright. So we'll cover those in this next section. Some things to remember are that copyright does not cover everything. Fair use allows use of copyrighted protected works or use of copyright protected works under very specific conditions. That's actually my favorite thing to teach the high school kids because it makes them think critically. And I love that. I love anytime I can challenge them to really use their brains. And copyright does eventually expire too. So we'll first go over these limitations about things that are not covered by copyright in the first place. Those government documents, so anything that's like a government website, those .govs, the NASA, what you see there is a picture of one of those beautiful NASA space photos. Those are not covered by, those are not copyrighted, so you are free to use those. Students can use those in their presentations without any worry. Facts and ideas, just because you think something in your head does not mean that it is covered by copyright. It's not in that fixed form. Phone numbers, addresses, getting from one place to another. So that informational piece. And then another limitation is fair use. Sometimes you can use copyrighted works without seeking the permission of the creator. And this is called fair use and is allowed under a Supreme Court decision. It describes the purpose of fair use in this way: to avoid rigid application of the copyright statute when on occasion it would stifle the very creativity which that law is designed to foster. In other words, we want to encourage more creativity. We all know that once you see something, that sparks something else, and then you can be creative. Ideas build upon each other. Fair use of copyrighted works includes criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship. Those are those higher ed studies and research, parody. So those are considered fair use and not an infringement of copyright. But you do have to think critically about if your use falls into one of those categories. Just because you think it's for a teaching category or a teaching purpose, you still have some thinking to do. It's not 100% automatic already. That's why we like to teach students and teachers. I really try to help my teachers understand this too, to understand fair use through this 4-factor test and really thinking through all 4 of these factors. So fair use has a 4-factor test that needs to be used when deciding if the copyrighted work can be used without getting that permission. All 4 factors must be considered with every situation. So what I'm going to share with you is an example that just because it might have been considered fair use in the classroom setting, it doesn't mean that same thing is automatically fair use in another setting. So for example, let's say that I make this really great Google slide deck to share with my students, and I'm using the best pictures from the internet. I'm grabbing all the current cool pictures, and I'm just showing that in my classroom. Now, if I post that on a public website, I have to reassess all these factors again. So what you're looking at is how much of the original work are you using? That's that amount in substance. The effect on the market, is your use going to affect the original creator's right to be paid and make a profit off of their work? The nature of the original, is it already highly creative when you started with it? Or is it just kind of factual at the very beginning? And are you, the purpose and character of your use is the one that I like the best, because that's seeing if you're transforming it enough to where it's totally different and new. So depending on the age of your students, you might just introduce this idea, or you may really want your students to dig into it. But the intention is to increase awareness of the fair use concept, not to offer decisions on specific situations. As ambassadors, we always recommend that you write a fair use analysis, file it away when you are using something like this that might be seen publicly. That way, if it ever would come back, the courts see that you did an analysis in good faith. There are also some really great checklists out there. I know Cornell University has one that can really help you think through all of these factors, and it breaks down them a little bit more. So take advantage of those tools if you can. And then finally, lastly, copyright does eventually expire and creative work falls into the public domain. So in the United States, this includes creative work published more than 95 years ago. So for example, in 2024, which we're in now, all works that were published before 1929. For works created during the last 95 years, but before 1978, copyright status is more complicated and depends on whether copyright holders took the proper steps to register and renew their copyrights. So we've got that little interesting window of time there. And then finally, for works created since 1978, copyright protection is basically automatic and will not expire for many years. So you can see some examples here of some things that did fall into the public domain eventually. All right, at this time now, we are going to explore some resources by going into our website. So the website is copyrightandcreativity.org, pretty straightforward. What we need to do when you get there is you will register. We ask that you register so that our grantors know that our resources are being continued to be used. Choose a grade level band, read objectives in the lesson PDF, and preview lesson slides. So we offer 4 different levels of resources: high school, middle school, elementary school, and I want to point out the professional development too, which is great to share with teachers. So let's go ahead and go to the live site. Where's my mouse? There it is. So yes, you will be asked to register. I'll just show you what that form means. You only have to do this one time, but it's real basic information. You do not need to worry about remembering a password. It will be with your email. And again, just, are you an educator? So a few simple questions. Since I already am registered, I just need to enter my email address. And now I'll have access to everything. Again, reiterate that everything you see here is free to use, which is wonderful. All right, we're going to mainly be in this resources section right here. And I first want to point out, and ladies, feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything. We're going to first start out at the professional development, because I love letting, this is great to let your curriculum people know in your district, your technology, your information technology people, or instructional technology people. There is a Canvas course right here, and it is totally free. You do not have to your school district does not have to have Canvas to take this course. It's completely self-paced. You should finish in about 2 to 3 hours. You can pause it and come back to it. And once you finish, you will have a much better understanding about copyright in general. I promise. This is one of the first things I did when I knew I needed to get more educated on this subject. And then you even get a little badge at the end that you can proudly display on your email signatures. And then also, if you're in a Ludo school district, there is that option here too. But your school district does need to be an Ludo subscriber for that one. So that's more the gamified version. Same content though. All right, also under resources, we have our office hours and webinars that we want to make sure you know are always available to you. Here would that be that link, and our times will be listed here, plus webinars. So we will have our webinar here eventually too, this recording. And then let's get into our curriculum bands. Here is the elementary. And what you can see here is we've got grades K through 6, and there is 1 lesson right here per grade level. Some of them are long, some are short, but they are all developmentally appropriate. We have, this one's the kindergarten one. Notice how it's all scripted for you. So as you scroll down, it tells you what questions to ask the students, which is nice. It gives you some extensions. It tells you how to prep and what videos you need to have. So you have it in that format if you prepare, or you have it in the lesson slides format as well. So this is great if you just want to demonstrate or have that visual when you're going through the lesson. And videos are also embedded. So here's a kindergarten video right here. and keywords. And also, if you look down here, all the notes are right here for you as well. So it just really helps guide you through the lesson. Obviously, when you get through, that's a short lesson. So what I really like is developmentally appropriate K1 and 2, very suited for the primary grades. It really hits on that social emotional sharing, putting your name, taking ownership of your own work, giving attribution, which is really great. Those complicated words like copyright don't even get introduced until 3rd grade. And something super exciting that we are so happy to share with you, and this is something we've been working on for several months, is each of our lessons and the elementary right now have an escape room. So what's great about this is you've got a facilitator guide that shows you all the locks. And then here's the escape room. And so you can kind of work through it and see if they can, you can work through it as a teacher or as a librarian with your students, especially for kindergarten, 1st grade. They will need your help. I do want to say that these are meant to be supplemental, not to replace the actual lessons. So you want to make sure you teach the lessons first and then give them the escape room as a supplemental fun activity. All right, so again, let me go quickly to middle school and high school. It's set up pretty much the same way. 4 big lessons. And you've got a lesson PDF. Here's your lesson slides. If you prefer to download everything into your Google Drive, there's a place to do that as well. Okay, or you can just grab them right from the website. Either way, whatever you prefer. And notice there's some real life, we have our own original content in our videos, but we also feature other real life videos too to really get those kids' attention. So also it applies to that authentic, what they are experiencing in the media as well. And then of course, here is high school. 3 big lessons. You may not be able to get them all done at once. And we also want to make sure you realize that you can mix and match. You can just grab one video if you need to. You don't have to do the lessons verbatim the way they are. You are free to adapt these lessons. Ladies, have I missed anything?
Can you go back to the elementary and click on a 2nd grade
Yes.
Google slide for me?
Sure.
I just want to show that as you expand on the lesson, the previous videos from the previous years are going to show up just to be a reminder summary of what they learned in the previous years. And then also these videos really give them the idea of what is going on in the video, like higher level of thinking, because it's not telling you exactly what's going on. So they have to be watching the video. And therefore, again, like the next slide, slide 7, it's giving those questions of what is going on? Did these friends treat each other fairly? As Julie mentioned, some social emotional learning in that as well. Would that be fair? How would you have felt? And so it's really engaging to the students, but it's also relatable to them as well.
Definitely, yes.
And I just wanted to add too, just because you might have maybe 4th grade doesn't mean you can't use the middle school ones. I know Jen and I both being elementary, we do like the middle school curriculum as well. So that's what's great about these lessons. You can pick and choose what works best for your students.
And on the opposite end, maybe your students have never done a copyright lesson in 4th grade and you want to do the 2nd grade lesson. That's the beauty of this, is that they are under Creative Commons. We just ask for attribution. And so you can take our lessons and expand on them and make them your own, which Julie's actually going to give some examples here, tie-ins and situations in education, of just some examples of how she expanded on our lessons that we are using here.
Perfect segue. Yes. So one thing I'm really big on is, and I'm sure you all are as well, is not teaching skills in isolation. I really want students, I want my copyright instruction, my information literacy, media literacy type instruction to be embedded with what they're already doing, instead of just like trying to get them to understand this isolated skill over here. They need to see that it applies to their everyday life. So a few things that I really like to do, mini lessons, like you don't have to again, do the entire curriculum in a week. Mini lessons like, hey, do you know how to find a Creative Commons image on Google? 10 minutes doing that. One thing that I also did was I did hyperdocs when I was an elementary librarian for our state award Show Me nominees, which were our picture book nominees. And I'll just kind of go through it really quickly. So this is, I knew I was already teaching the book. I knew that I wanted the center of my instruction to be around literacy, but I also wanted to make sure I gave them opportunities to see how creativity ties in and how when they're creating something. So you can see that I just plucked a video from our curriculum and added here for them to watch this independently on their own. This is a self-paced lesson. I had many things embedded in this. This would be for about third, fourth, fifth grade, probably you could do this. So some research questions, but one thing I wanted them to do was I wanted them to create a digital bento box, and I wanted them to use it from a book. So here's my example from this picture book. And then here, they were supposed to think of one of their favorite books and add images here in these little boxes. And then what I wanted them to do was think about who they wanted to share it with, because they're creators. And I think we need to give students the option to make that decision and not assume that just because they do something for homework that it is, or for an assignment for any of us, that it is ours to just do whatever we want with it. This curriculum really helped me think about my own practice as a teacher and how they have a right to see how it's shared. Obviously, it has to be shared with the teacher, but you could, when you make a copy of this, you can decide, drag a box here. Who do you want to share it with? Your family? Do you want to keep it private? And do you want any of your bento box project to be used in somebody else's creation? Just getting them thinking at a very young age about how they have some power over their own creative work is important. So that is an example of something I did with elementary. Middle school, there's so many ways you can use novels as catalysts for creative projects. So making those book trailers, again, the book bento boxes, picture collages, designing different book covers or album covers. This example is not something I personally did, but I had permission from an art teacher to use it. And if you click on it, you can see the lesson. It's a graphic design challenge using Canva, which is something that we all love. And I just kind of mentioned how it'd be so easy it's a natural fit to tie in the copyright creativity lesson 1 to cover copyright basics and discuss how the more hard work and time the creator puts into a project, it makes copyright protection even more significant. So lesson 1 in the middle school hits on that concept. And then swinging back and using lesson 3 to discuss musicians, because in this particular assignment, they were supposed to design an album cover for a musician and how they're feeling. So that empathy piece about why it's important to share music legally. At the high school level, I do this project every year with English 1 classes. We create this, I believe, podcast and learn about their rights as creators. I believe this is my Nearpod. I'm hoping this link still works. Nope, I'll have to fix it. It seems like every time it expires or something, and I'll fix it for you. But you can go through and, podcasting isn't a great example for a high school level assignment. They created a podcast. What music did they want to use? Could they use the music? Did they need to use the stock media instead? So it was a great example for me to work that in. All right. Whew, I've been talking a long time. I think it's Jen's turn now.
Yes, that was terrific. Thank you, Julie, for sharing all of that. Again, these resources are really great because you can expand in your own way of what's best for you and your students. And, that's one reason why I really like CNC. The lessons, they're limited number of resources. Again, I said that I taught elementary students. And when I was looking for something, everything that I was finding, a lot of you probably heard of Common Sense Media, which I absolutely love. But their lessons really started for copyright and fair use from 3rd grade and up. And again, as anything else, I wanted to start that foundation in kindergarten. And these resources, again, started in kindergarten and went all the way up through 12th grade. The videos are informative, they're relatable, they're engaging, which is really important to get those students engaged. We already talked about the social emotional learning aspect of them, the higher level of thinking that they need to do while watching the videos. And the best part is they're free, right? But also the lessons are just ready to go. When I want to teach this, I don't have to sit there and write lesson plans. Everything is there for me. Questions that I would ask the students, possible answers the students are going to get back to me. The Google slide is there, which is what I put up on the board when I'm teaching this. And then everything from the PDF is also in the Google slide in the notes. And so you can just follow along. And again, positive message, right? Kids want to know what they're allowed to do, what they can do. And I can't emphasize enough that these lessons really allow and empower my students to become their own creators. We talk a lot about in school, like giving credit to others for the work they've done. But this is really making our students think about how they are the creators and what rights they have over their own creative work, even if it's just a doodle on a sticky note, which is a lesson I did the other day, or talking with my students and not at my students is really helpful as well. Not telling them, again, what they can't do, but this is what you can do, right? And you are the creator and you get to decide on what happens with the work that you do create. The next question that I get is like, well, when, where, how? We're so busy. How do I integrate all of this? Again, Julie gave some great examples, and I know Brittany will echo on this as well, that, you put it in when you can. Maybe you want to do in the beginning of the school year as a standalone lesson, respecting your person. That lesson is about putting your name on your paper. You're a creator, right? And making sure you put your name on your paper so that you are getting credit and not somebody else. Or you can align it with a lesson, like a research project, when they're trying to pull images or videos or music. Well, where exactly can they go, and what is fair use and what's not fair use? And really talking about that is really important, especially having them think outside of, okay, well, I'm using this for educational purposes, but now I want to share it out. I want to share it on my social media platforms. I want to share it on my website and so forth. So what rights do I have and what am I allowed to use and what am I not allowed to use? And that's where these lessons come in. My students have highly benefited from receiving these lessons right before or as we are about to apply the concept in our everyday learning experience, which is really great as well. And then student reactions. It's just so fun hearing what they have to say about the lessons. Kindergarten students are, of course, they want to claim their own work and get credit. They don't want anybody else to have credit for their paper. In another lesson, it would be cool if somebody used my picture, but as long as they gave me credit for it. And then I would be mad if someone took a picture I made and did something without asking me first, especially if they made money off of it. And I think we can all agree to that. And then my older students, my 4th through 6th grade, this is where I was most surprised because they were surprised by how everything they had created, such as artwork, stories, or more, may have been copyrighted, and they had no idea. They want to know if teachers legally have to ask their permission before sharing their work on their website. It was a great conversation starter. If almost everything is covered by copyright, what are we allowed to use? That was a good one that went to the introduction video. It just really sparked their interest for the 4th grade, and they wanted to know more. Again, these lessons are relatable at every level, and they're ready to go for educators in a variety of settings. And again, they're completely free. Everything we just showed you, even if that grant goes away, all of these resources will always stay on the website completely free for you. And using copyrighted works in school. So there are 3. Number 1 is specific exception for in-class teaching. So that is face-to-face instruction, the 4 walls of your classroom or your library or wherever you are. The nonprofit educational institution and the copy the teacher is using was lawfully obtained. That one is one that I asked my teachers all the time, where did you get the copy from? And we talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, fair use, which Julie went over earlier. We can use copyrighted works after applying the 4-factor test to determine if it meets the criteria for fair use, which was the purpose and character of your use, amount and substance, nature of the original, the effect on the market. Again, all 4 factors must be applied in every instance, and you may need to reconsider these factors depending on how the work is being shared. So what constitutes fair use if the work is displayed within a school domain may no longer meet them. If the work moves outside to a public site, we really need to think about that. If I use copyrighted photos in a Google slide with my class, that is not copyright infringement. But if I post this Google slide to my website, then it's going to be. It may be. I have just broken down the class walls and I invited the public in. That's why it's encouraging to use your learning management systems. Then also we talk about Creative Commons, public domain, district subscriptions. A lot of time we get questions and I'm like, okay, well, it depends. Like, what subscriptions did your district have? What licenses does your district have? Again, is it Creative Commons? Is it in the public domain? If it's in the Creative Commons, there are different licenses that creators use in the Creative Commons. Are you following them? And so that last one, we really need to be thinking of what we have and what we don't have. And it's going to be a variety of people are going to have different answers for that. It's not always going to be yes or no, because it's going to depend on the situation. I'm going to pass it off to Brittany, who's going to talk to us today about infringement versus plagiarism.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about infringement versus plagiarism. These sometimes get confused with educators. They're both really important questions about how we can use other people's work, but they are different. So let's start with plagiarism. Plagiarism really focuses on that academic integrity. This is failing to cite your sources. It's important as students, but also as adults, that we don't pass off others' work as our own. We've got to try to avoid plagiarism by identifying that copied material and citing our sources. But with copyright infringement, this is when we're really looking at violating creators' rights to control who copies, performs, all of those things that Julie mentioned earlier as copyright holders, the rights that we get. When you violate that, that is an infringement. And the goal for copyright infringement is really to incentivize further creation by ensuring that creators can get paid. So when I talk to my students about this, I really talk to them about looking at plagiarism as being academic based. We're really looking at doing what's right academically. And then copyright, we're looking at that creation for creators. How can we make sure that creators are getting paid? All right, so let's look at some scenarios of the two. This first scenario says student A writes a blog post and pulls images from a photographer's website to illustrate her post. She is very careful to give full attribution to the photographer. And then in scenario 2, we have student A gives permission for student B to use several paragraphs of a story she wrote in his story. But with permission, is there copyright infringement? So let's go ahead and look at which one they are. So let's go back to scenario 1. The student can carefully cite a source, use quotation marks to indicate exactly what someone else's work in, but still have copyright infringement because they did not actually get permission. They didn't have, they weren't authorized to use that. And so therefore, even if you're okay as far as plagiarism, you have infringed on someone else's work. In scenario 2, student A could be allowed to use someone's work under copyright law because they got permission, right? However, they're guilty of plagiarism because they didn't attribute properly. So, you really have to look at the different scenarios or different examples that you're using, because even though you may be okay with copyright, you may be committing plagiarism and vice versa. So you have to look. When copyright infringement, you're really looking for permissions, but then with plagiarism, you're looking for citations. This is one of my absolute favorite examples to use. I even use this with my 4th grade students. I tell them in this example, we're really going to talk about the cover. We're not talking about the book because it's a high school book. We're going to look at the book cover. So in this example, this is definitely a missed opportunity to ask the creator for her permission when using others' work. So what happened in this book, The Poet X, the artist who created the cover of this book took an image of a self-portrait of the woman on the right. She happens to be a professional photographer who took this self-portrait. The artist took that self-portrait and turned it into a sketch. And, you know, there's no denying that is the same woman. The photographer did find out about it. She was unhappy. She actually felt like it was plagiarism. And of course, it's not, it's copyright infringement because her comment was they did not seek her permission. And again, permission goes with copyright. Um, this is a great example too. And I think, I can't remember, Julie, is this one where you can click on it to show? Can't remember if the example is hyperlinked or not.
No.
No. Okay. So School Library Journal has a great example that I like to use with my students. And all it is one of the photographer's fans actually did an overlay where you have her photograph and then slowly the book cover picture comes. And my kids and I have a really big discussion on, is it transformative enough? Did that artist create something more transformative with the book cover than the photograph? And it creates really good discussions with your students. All right, so here we have copyright infringement or plagiarism with AI. So we've got ChatGPT here and the monkey selfie. So the AI question has been coming up a lot. Is that copyright infringement? Well, there's no definite cases quite yet. The Copyright Office is still looking at it. They're still investigating different cases. The only real case right now that they can compare is this monkey selfie. And this monkey selfie was a photographer who taught these monkeys how to snap a photo of themselves. And then later a case got brought up against the photographer about how the photographer didn't own the works, but the monkeys did. But the court actually found that no, the monkeys are not human. So therefore it was okay for the photographer to use the photographs. So that's kind of where they're at right now with ChatGPT because they're not human. That does not mean it's not plagiarism. So you kind of have to look at that academic integrity and kind of just see. But as far as copyright right now, we have to continue to check the Copyright Office on their decision. All right, so this is something that I know Julie and Jen and I both use with our students. This is just a really good way to kind of help your students learn more than just grabbing images off of Google. We all know that our students do that. That's something easy for them to do. So let's teach them how to be more mindful. You can go into tools, show them how to change the usage rights. I like to do this with something super creative, like with maybe Harry Potter, because if I keep the usage rights on all, and I have Harry Potter, a ton of images come up. But when we change the usage rights to Creative Commons license only, then a whole bunch go away. I know Julie talks about with her high school students, she has them look at the individual image Creative Commons license over on the side of those images, which I know in elementary that may not be something, especially like first, second grade. You may not go and talk to them about their Creative Commons license, but for high school, that's totally different. You want them to take that step further and have the students really look at what the license is on those separate images.
That's right. Because when you do go and you switch to Creative Commons, well, we've got a little time. So I think I'll just demonstrate real quick, if that's okay. All right, I'm going to do a search for this guy. I'm sure we've all heard of him by now, right? All right, so we're in images. And I'm going to go see all the images right now. Taylor's coming up, Travis, together. There's them being sweet and cute. But when we go to tools and we change the usage rights here to Creative Commons, oh darn, all those pictures of him with Taylor kind of just fall off and go away. So the pictures are not nearly as exciting and kids are always a little disappointed.
They are.
But I know it's always kind of a bummer, but like, let's say we want to go to this picture here. This drawing's pretty cool. You'll see that it'll say license details right here. And if you go that extra step with your older students and you click on it, it will tell you the license. So this one has no copyright. And this one is, it says this work has been identified as being free of known restrictions under copyright law, and it tells you everything you can do. It's just really interesting to go in and see what each of those licenses say. Sometimes they say you're free to use that picture. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. License details. but this one wants you to give attribution, see? So that's always a little bit interesting, an interesting thing to show your kids. All right, where am I? There we go. Okay, back to you, Brittany.
All right, so I know Jen mentioned Common Sense. So for Common Sense Media users, if your district uses Common Sense Media, we do have some videos to clarify and enrich those lessons. So we do have a YouTube channel. You can go to that for copyright and creativity and look up the lessons that we have on here to kind of supplement the Common Sense Media lessons. And then here is where you can follow us. If you have any more questions, you are more than welcome to email Dana, and there's her email there as well. There is a QR code for a quick link to register to the website. We also have these posters, and we forgot to share that. You can go to the website and to print the posters, they are there on the site. They're really great posters on things you should know about copyright, and then free speech, copyright, and fair use. The three of us always talk about how we have them above copy machines in our teachers' lounges. That way our teachers kind of have a good reminder. But there is several different versions. There's one with the white background that's easier on the printing. And then there's also this one with the black background. Ladies, did y'all have anything to add?
I think we've covered everything. So this has been great. Don't forget about our office hours. If anything comes up and you just need to brainstorm or think through a fair use scenario, feel free to jump on and share that with your colleagues. We are happy to meet with you and talk with you, and also provide virtual professional development to your districts or your schools too. All right, I think that's it.